In today's video, we're going to learn how to make this, one of my favorite blackletter designs in a graffiti style. And it doesn't matter how much experience you have with calligraphy. In the next 20 minutes, I'll show you how to make the design completely from scratch. All you'll need is an iPad, an Apple Pencil, and the app Procreate. And to make things even easier, I've created a totally free bundle with a bunch of the resources that we're going to use today that you can download at procreatepowerpack.com. We're going to start by making a new canvas. I'm going to go with the screen size by default. I'm going to start by grabbing a guide from my Procreate Builder collection, but you can absolutely use any grid. I'm going to go with a decently large size here, and all I'm going to do is tap to add a few guides onto the page. And I'm going to reduce the opacity of this layer by clicking over here, just so that it's not super heavy or super visible. What's handy about this guide is it gives me an idea of roughly where my ascender area is here, my X height, and then descender area. Next up, we're going to grab a calligraphy brush. I'm going to go with the standard 35-degree nib that comes with the Procreate Builder. Now let's make sure we're on a new layer. That way we can get rid of the guides at the end. I'm going to start up here right around where the top of the X height is. That's the waistline. And we're going to just draw a small little curvy shape like this. You know what? Maybe we'll scooch it over to the left a bit just to give us some room for the next line. Maybe even move it down a smidge. For the second line, we're going to start pretty high up. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and resize the canvas already, just to give us a little bit more room to play. I'm going to start pretty high, so like maybe right around here. And we're just going to swoop in like that, just kind of barely touching. Now we're going to draw this next curvy line just kind of like this. And we're going to take it just until it almost touches that second line that we drew. And then from inside, let's just go ahead and add a new layer. And we'll add another sharp little curve like that. There we go. That is the basic structure of the letter. Just 4 lines. That's all we needed. You know what? Maybe we'll even just group these. And I can go back to it anytime if I need it. I'm going to create a combined version of my basic letter. That way I can quickly toggle it off and on where I need to. So we'll just duplicate that group that we just created. I'm going to hide the original. That keeps it safe. And then I'm going to pinch these right together. Now I have my entire letter on one layer. I don't need the group anymore. And the reason I want that is because I'm going to lower the opacity of this just to start working on this next little sketch layer. And we'll just take the opacity way down, just so it's barely visible there. That way, if I want to have an idea of where some straight lines are, I've got the guides behind me still just to help out. Now I'm going to grab a pencil brush. I'm going to go to the graffiti collection that I created here, and we'll grab that sketch pencil. All I'm going to do is sketch around the letter to create the design that we want. I'm going to reduce the opacity of my sketch layer all the way down, maybe to like around 25. I think I picked 27 there. And reducing the opacity of the layer just makes it so that the pencil isn't completely black. I kind of like that gray look. Now all I'm going to do is sketch around the letter to create my interesting design, and we're maybe even like add some like interesting kind of rounded edges around here. And you can take your time with this. Just again, treat it like it's a sketch. And you see I'm going around the outline. We don't have to be too careful with this. We're just trying to get a basic structure for the letter. So I'm going to keep going here into this corner. Again, I'm making the lines wider than they originally were. Let's go over here. And we'll come down. I don't know, maybe that ends in a point. We'll figure that out in a second. Down here again, maybe I come like this. And you can see I'm making the structure even bigger than it was when we started. Here, keep the curve. Maybe we'll just kind of draw it like that. Long, smooth lines. And we're going to come up here. Come and connect right to where the letter is. We'll add nicer lines afterwards, but I really enjoy this sketching process. I find it really fun and free. So we'll come around here, draw that line. Maybe we'll even come all the way up to the top. Rather than try to squeeze this in, I really just want to be free to create whatever sketchy design that I want. So I'm actually going to increase the size of the canvas rather than try to squeeze something in unnaturally. So I just make the canvas a little bigger, and I've got all this room up here to play. And I may not need it, but I like to just have it there just in case. And we can always move the letter around afterwards if we need to. I think I may have gone too wide there. Maybe we'll round it out a little bit. Bring that in here, and we'll curve into this section. That looks good. And we'll maybe come up here. Again, being very scribbly, just very scribbly and free. And as we scribble, we find the lines that we want to keep. And so we can give things a little bit more weight this way too, just kind of see what we like. And then we want to come in down here. Maybe I just leave a little bit of a peak right there. A little bit of just a tiny little notch to indicate that that's where the letter ends. And let's just bring it out a bit. We'll keep this going down. This gives us a bigger notch this way. Here we go. And what I'm trying to do here is also think of these as continuous lines. So I actually also want to think about continuing this line. So we want to connect it so that it makes sense. Same thing here. Maybe this one comes like that. And then this is going to give me my little hole there. And we'll just remove this overlap afterwards. Now we can add some other interesting elements to the design, and for an example, I'm just going to add a couple of little blocks or bricks up here in the top left. So we'll just sketch one of them in here. This one we'll say it's kind of like attached, and then just draw a free rectangle. Maybe it just kind of comes up to here. It's a little bit angled so it's connected, just like that. And maybe on top of it we add one more, just kind of teetering right on top of it here. And this one, maybe it isn't connected, it's just at a kind of a simple angle to it here, just like that. So another block here, just like so. And then maybe we even add a couple of other little chips from this thing breaking off the top, as if it was kind of cracked and coming off. Let's add a little tiny one there. Now let's do a little erasing, kind of see how it looks, if it's connected there. Okay, that's just one example of a fun design element that we can add at the top there. So let's add another new layer, and I'm gonna grab my graffiti pen. And again, you can grab that brush in the free pack that I mentioned earlier. Now we're just gonna start adding ink around these lines. So we'll start here, give it a little bit of thickness, and then as we get closer to that corner, thicken up a bit. Now we'll move in here, starting with roughly the same thickness, and then we'll go up. Let's go with a thick line here, and go here, pretty thick, wide line. Maybe where it connects just a little bit thinner, and then gets wider as we go to the edge, and we'll connect these two just like that. So line here. See, I want it thicker, so I can just press over it. Add a nice big thick line there. So thick as we get to that little corner, maybe even loop around thick in this corner. So we're going to keep that thickness, maybe just like that. And then from here, a little bit thinner. And then let's go really big and thick on that corner. Come back down, and we can just play with the weights here. Thick, thin, thick again here in this. Go thick there, thin on this edge, thicken up over here, thick, thin, thick here. Now we can get rid of the sketch layer and see where we are. Just a quick break in here to let you know that I have a ton of amazing Procreate resources all available in my shop, blacklettershop.com. This channel is entirely sponsored by all of you that pick up these fun products, so thank you for your support, and let's get back to that tutorial. Let's start by adding some thickness to the design so that it looks 3D. So I'm going to grab a copy of my little inked layer here, and we're going to, let's just turn off the original and let's fill this one with black. You know, maybe I don't want to extrude the little chips here. So let's even erase these from this layer. So let's get rid of this. Now, if I turn the sketch layer back on, you'll see it's still there. And let's duplicate the sketch layer too, just to keep that one safe. And we'll fill that top sketch layer just with white for now. In order for us to be able to see it, we just need to move this white version all the way to the top. You can tell I need to fill this in too. And to create the shadow, it's as easy as grabbing that back layer and moving it. So let's zoom out and let's see where we want to put it. I actually want it to be pretty big and bold. So let's give all sorts of room here. So I've moved my layer behind. Maybe I keep that one too. And go back to my graffiti pen. We're going to fill in these little sections that stick out. Just grab that. I just created another version of this brush with no streamlining just to make it a little bit easier to fill in these little gaps and draw some of the lines. Now let's add that fun gradient to the background section. I'm going to hide the top layer, and then using my color palette here, I'm just going to grab a few of the colors, and we're going to grab one of my ink spray brushes. I'm going to put the gradient on a new layer, but I'm going to make it a clipping mask of that shadow layer. So here, clipping mask. We don't have to be careful with this at all. Just throw in maybe some purple. Now we'll grab another color and put it on top. Maybe we even add a touch of orange to it just for something interesting there. Maybe we'll grab this dark pink next and draw a little bit of a section here. And then finally, let's add that bright pink all the way at the top. Here's where the magic happens. You know what? Maybe we'll even turn this layer on so we can see what happens as we do it. So making sure that this clipping mask is selected. Let's go to our adjustments. And we'll pick Gaussian blur, and then we're gonna blur that layer. And you see how it creates the gradient? That looks pretty cool, right around 33%. So for now, I'm gonna grab that first shadow layer that we duplicated before, and I'm gonna use that to just give me a little bit of help in adding some of these little extra lines back. So let's just grab that one and scooch it just a little bit. See how that gives me some helpful outlines to shoot for? There, that's pretty good. We'll pick our graffiti pen. This is the streamline pen that we were using earlier, and we'll make sure we've got a black color picked. And to add some of these lines, we just need to come up and do it above the gradient that we added so that it shows up on top of it. And we can add some of these little outline connections back. So it's pretty thick, so let's add a little bit there. Let's give that little outline here. Come back and add it to this corner. Now let's fill this top layer with that blue color. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to pick a somewhat desaturated blue. So I'm going to go with this one. And first, I just want to create a duplicate of this layer just to make sure I've still got a copy in case I need to come back. And we'll fill this one in here. And actually I can just continue filling. Now to make it look a little bit more interesting, I'm actually going to come on top of this layer and again add another clipping mask. We'll grab the ink spray brush again, and this time I'm going to go with an even brighter blue, almost white. And let's just add a little bit of white over in here. And it's okay if we go over the outline, because remember, we saved our outline before. This is where the benefit of saving things comes in. So let's just duplicate that, and we'll bring it all the way to the top. I don't want this to be a clipping mask, so let's undo the clipping mask and turn it on. See, I've got my outline back. And now let's go a touch darker. We don't need to go that much darker, but just a little bit darker. Go back to our little brush again, and I'm gonna add just a little bit of shadow to these areas here in the corner that might get a little bit darker. Again, just touches here and there. And maybe you know what's coming next. We'll go back to our adjustments and we'll blur that. If we don't like the effect, we can even back off a touch by changing the opacity. We'll start by adding some highlights. I'm just gonna grab a little highlight brush and on a new layer, let's create a new layer. I'm gonna reduce the opacity a bit, just maybe 50%. It's close, good enough for now. And I'm gonna change the blend mode to add. Maybe I'll make the brush even a little bit smaller. Maybe you can add just a little dot. Something like that. Something cool and fun. And we'll follow that up over here. A little line like that. That corner. And another one down here. Now let's add a couple of interesting outlines. We'll grab the streamlined graffiti pen, or maybe even just a very dark blue. Let's go something way down there. And then we'll come in, just maybe a couple of dots. Just like that. Again, we're just making things, give it a little bit more detail, make it just a little bit more interesting. Just start like that, thicken up in the corner. Now we can even come in and add some other interesting effects. We'll add one more new layer, and let's grab a new color, this light orange one here, and we'll go with the streamlined graffiti pen. And I'm just going to start just making sure we're on a new layer. Draw one little rectangle. First one maybe is a little bit bigger. Take your time with these, just have fun. Draw one right next to it. And I'm just progressively making these a little bit thinner as we go. And you can take your time, refine all of these little edges. I'm just going to be a little bit quick for now. A little bit skinnier. And maybe just a few really skinny ones to finish this off. Finally, let's add that cool triangle in the back. I'm going to go back way behind the shadow layer here, and we'll add a new layer on top of that. And I'm going to just freehand it. I'm not even going to worry about sketching it at this point. Let's just use that graffiti pen, and we'll come in straight like that. And we'll come back down here, just like that. I don't know, maybe that looks cool. And big, bold line here, and then connect. Kind of feel like making it a little bit wider, changing the shape and the size. Because we put it on its own layer, super easy. We just grab that move tool. In this case, I'm going to go freeform because maybe I want to make it a little bit wider. Maybe I want to pull it up a little bit. And I'm really just trying to avoid things like this right here. I don't want lines to totally intersect. Now I'm going to grab kind of a medium orange. So maybe let's go with this color. Again, let's duplicate it just to preserve it, just in case I need it later. Fill it with that color. And see, now I'm already glad I kept that line because I know I'm going to want it on top of it. So another copy of the outline layer, and we'll take the outline layer and move it on top. Now we've got that on top, and we'll grab one of the ink spray brushes, Here's our orange. Let's go with a white. Add a clipping mask. That's where the clipping masks come in handy. And we'll make the brush bigger. And just like that, right in the corner. Maybe we go even brighter in that tippy top corner. Now let's add a little bit of a shadow color. So let's go back to the orange we had selected. And you know what? Maybe I want to add a little bit more red. Maybe even a little bit more. I want it to be, yeah, maybe let's try that. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I like that. Okay, now we've got that. And finally, we're going to blur this just like we did before. Gaussian blur. And that adds a cool gradient inside of our triangle. And we could also come back and tweak the outline just to make it a little bit cleaner. For the final step, this is the easiest one of all. We're going to grab our super bold pink and we're going to go behind the triangle now. So there's the triangle. Let's go behind it and on a new layer. And then we're just going to grab and draw some splats just like that. Now we can tweak this even more by duplicating that pink layer. And let's add, just to give it a little bit more excitement, let's add a perspective blur. And that's going to stretch things out to make it look like it's just exploding from the middle of the page. And then to tweak this a bit, I can potentially reduce the opacity just to make it a little bit less bold and emphasized. To preserve this one, I'm going to add just a mask this time. And with my black color selected, I'm going to keep it with the ink spray. Let's just go in and erase some different parts of this, just like so. And that's going to make it so that the entire layer, maybe just some of the splats, aren't perspective blurred. We could even add a background. Let's add a new layer on top of it. And I'm going to grab the water brush. Let's go with this blue that we added to the letter and go with a really dark version, just so that it kind of matches. We're going to go with a huge version of this water brush and see how it kind of adds like a marble texture. And then I can shrink it and add just some little fine touches here and there. Now we have a very marbly look to the background. Could reduce the opacity of that just to make it a little bit less pronounced. Let's resize this. And I want to go kind of full screen with this. So let's change the canvas and we'll widen it a touch, widen it, touch that way. That should be pretty close. We see that my background is still where it was. So I can actually just adjust the size of my background if I want. Freeform, let's pull it over to this edge and pull it over to that edge. And maybe we even add a little bit more of that really big background right around here, just to fill in some of those sections, just like that. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to finish this up by just adding a couple of other effects that I always love to add. We're going to go all the way to the top of our layer stack, add a new layer on top of it, and I'm going to 3-finger swipe down, copy all, 3-finger swipe down, paste. That pastes a copy of the entire image on top. And we can add all sorts of cool effects. I like adding a little bit of noise. That makes it look a little bit cool. So just took that to 15%. And that's pretty good. Let's turn that off. And maybe we even adjust the curves a bit, make it a touch brighter in some spots. If we go overboard, all we have to do is reduce the opacity and it'll take us back closer to where we were. So maybe I kind of like around 70%. And you could even do other crazy things. We could even add chromatic aberration from the center. And we'll call this one done. If you had fun with today's tutorial, let me know in the comments below what letter you'd like to see next. Because who says we have to go in the order of A to Z? And maybe even a fun style to try, like electricity, slime, a letter that's on fire. Who knows? Whatever you think would be fun. And if you're ready for even more Procreate fun right now, check out this tutorial where I walk through creating this really cool Ring of Fire design, again, completely from scratch. In the meantime, keep writing, keep playing, and have an absolutely fantastic day. I'll see you next time.